Shifting gears from the 1973 half-dollar's subtle experimental strikes, let's dive into a coin that practically screams error before you even lay eyes on it. The 1985 Kennedy half-dollar is famous not for its mass appeal, but for the quirks that turned otherwise common pieces into collectors' holy grails. In a year when mintages reached an astounding 420 million across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, it might seem impossible that any would stand out. Yet the mishaps and oddities of 1985 flipped that assumption on its head. That year's Kennedy portrait inherited the same design we know so well. A right-facing profile of John F. Kennedy, hair swept back, gaze determined. On the reverse, the heraldic eagle still clutches olive branch and arrows, encircled by legend and stars. But the moment bronze planchets began feeding into the presses, something went awry. Off-center strikes, where the die didn't fully contact the coin blank, created half-images framed by smooth metal. A small misfeed could leave part of Kennedy's face or the eagle's wing faintly struck or entirely missing. Collectors refer to these as off-center strikes, and some examples are so dramatic the error covers 50% or more of the design. Errors that severe command top dollar. A 1985 off-center half-dollar with 60% or greater misalignment can fetch between $200 and $500 in mint state condition, depending on eye appeal. If the misalignment creates an interesting pattern, say, only the date and motto aligned while the portrait is entirely out of sight, bidding can soar higher. The most extreme recorded off-center 1985 half, with roughly 80% of its design shifted, sold at auction in 2018 for over $1,200, a testament to how dramatically an error can amplify value. Yet not all error varieties are easily spotted at first glance. Some coins emerged with missing mint marks. In 1985, Philadelphia coins bore no P mark. Denver pieces carried a tiny D near the truncation of the bust, and San Francisco strikings were proof finishes with S. On a few business strike pieces from Denver, the D was omitted entirely, likely due to a scratched or blocked mint mark punch on the die. A 1985 half-dollar lacking a D has been cataloged as a true rarity. Most Denver business strikes display that mark. When one showed up in a coin show dealer's tray in 2005, it sparked a feeding frenzy. Graded MS 63, it sold for over $750, despite the grade being modest for collector standards. Condition mattered less than the pure thrill of owning something nearly impossible to find. You'll also encounter doubled die examples among 1985 halves. While not as dramatic as an off-center strike, doubled lettering on the obverse rim, where the doubling appears around portions of Liberty or In God We Trust, can be subtle yet significant. A clear doubling along the curves of the letters, visible without magnification, might boost a coin's value from a few dollars in mint state to $50 or more in mid-grade examples. West Coast collectors initially documented those in the late 90s, and by the early 2000s, reference books classified at least 3 distinct double-die varieties for the year. Outside of errors, standard 1985 business strikes in uncirculated grades are far from worthless. Denver's MS 65 full bands example can trade hands for $25 to $35, reflecting both its eye appeal and the omnipresent half-dollar craze of the 1980s. Proof-like specimens, struck at San Francisco, capture sharp, mirror-like fields with frosted devices. A PL 65 can command $75 to $125, while a deeper cameo effect, where the portrait and eagle appear frosted against lustrous backgrounds, might fetch upwards of $200 in PR 67 DCM condition. Part of the allure of 1,985 issues lies in a grand experiment the Mint ran that year. To test a new alloy composition for planchet longevity and die wear, a small batch of coins was struck on slightly different metal blanks. Those test pieces slipped into circulation accidentally, and collectors prized them for their subtly darker hue and crisper detail retention. Identifying these test strikes involves close inspection of the edge for uniformity and comparison of surface luster. They're one of the numismatic world's most whispered legends, with fewer than a dozen confirmed examples known to exist. One such coin, slabbed MS 66 and privately certified as an experimental alloy, changed hands in 2012 for a staggering $4,500. Stories surrounding discovery only stoked the market further. In 1994, a Florida banker reportedly found a small cache of 1985 halves in the drawer of a newly remodeled teller station. Among standard issues lay a single off-center strike, its error instantly clear under a desk lamp's glare. The banker, realizing its potential, turned to a local club for identification. By the time he offered it at auction, demand from regional collectors had raised the price to nearly 10 times its expected value. Folklore credits that fine with putting 1985 Kennedy errors on every serious collector's radar. Condition-based values for 1985 halves follow the usual numismatic gradient, but with error premiums layered on. In low grades, good, G4, through very good, VG10, most business strikes exchange for face value or just above it, say 75 cents to $1.50. At fine, F12, or very fine, VF20, sharpness in Kennedy's hair and eagle feathers sees prices climb to $2 to $5. Once you reach extremely fine, XF40, where the details pop yet without mint luster, the jump to $6 to $10 feels modest. Yet just a few points more into about uncirculated, negative 50 Australian dollars, and the coin gleams again, with gems at MS60 selling for around $12 to $15. When a 1985 half enters true mint state territory, MS63 through MS65, collectors pay for full strike, full luster and absence of detracting marks. MS63 typically sees $20 to $30, MS64 about $35 to $50, and MS65 around $60 to $80 for Denver strikes. Philadelphia non-mint marked pieces at MS65 can yield slightly higher returns due to their complex classification as either proof-like or cameo. Finally, MS66 examples, particularly from San Francisco's deep mirror proof-like run, command prices approaching $300, since those pristine surfaces resist circulation and exude collector appeal. Off-center error coins, doubled dies, missing mint marks, and experimental alloys collectively catapult the 1985 half-dollar beyond its face value. Each coin holds its own backstory. The off-center struck in a Nevada coin-op machine, the doubled die spotted by a Texas schoolteacher using a jeweler's loop, the mint markless Denver piece that came home in a pocketful of change. Those narratives endow the metal with emotional value. When collectors bid, they're buying that story as much as the coin itself. The marketplace reflects this emotional draw. Online auctions regularly see dozens of 1985 half-dollar listings each month, often focusing on the off-center varieties. Dealer tables at major shows in Chicago and Baltimore routinely set aside dedicated trays labeled 1985 errors, where error coins go for premiums over standard issues. Observers note that prices peak every few years as demand from newly initiated collectors surges, then plateau as supply trickles in from long-forgotten coin rolls and estates. For seasoned collectors, the 1985 half-dollar represents a textbook case of how ordinary can become extraordinary. With millions struck, it seems like a coin you'd never stop to examine. Yet when you pause at those subtle die clashes, missing mint marks, or glaring off-center impressions, you uncover layers of mint history and potential profit hidden in plain sight. It's a reminder that even in high mintage years, the human element in minting ushers in variety and scarcity. That wraps up our exploration of the 1985 half-dollar, the minting mistakes, the measurable premiums, and the stories behind each prized example. Next, we'll pivot to the 1972 issue, another piece loaded with die cracks, doubling, and an underappreciated variety that's waiting to be rediscovered. Until then, keep those eyes sharp and your sense of curiosity sharper. Now, shifting our focus to the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar, you'll find a coin that quietly slipped into circulation yet hides enough intrigue to keep seasoned collectors on their toes. Struck just a year after the Philadelphia and Denver mints resumed clad coinage full-time following the 1965 silver recall, the 1972 issue sits at an intersection of evolving mint technology and growing collector curiosity. The public barely gave these pieces a passing glance and pocket change, leaving a surprising number tucked away in mint sets and rolls, perfect candidates for rare varieties to emerge decades later. When the presses rolled in early 1972, the mint faced the dual challenge of maintaining production volume and improving die life. Business strikes from Philadelphia and Denver totaled roughly 158 million and 128 million coins, respectively. Healthy figures, yet overshadowed by public indifference toward the half-dollar denomination. San Francisco, meanwhile, produced proof examples in special mint sets rather than the separate proof coins of earlier years that featured a softer satin finish. That mix of business strikes and mint sets provided the perfect laboratory for die anomalies to show up. Doubled dies, die cracks, repunched mint marks, and more. One of the most coveted identifiers on a 1972 half-dollar is a true double die obverse variety. Unlike the subtler doubling on many modern issues, this 1972 DDO exhibits pronounced doubling across the date and the beginning of Liberty, creating a ghost-like second image that doesn't require magnification. Collectors classify it under the FD 501 designation in the Fine-Goldberg system. High-grade examples, slabbed MS 66 by a major grading service, have realized prices north of $3,200 at auction, demonstrating that clear, bold doubling can elevate a common clad issue into marquee territory. Aside from doubled dies, die cracks appear frequently on business strikes. Look closely at the obverse fields near JFK's temple or stretching from the star above the date toward the rim. A network of fine fissures can sometimes be spotted. One dramatic example, where a crack runs through the 5 in 50 cents, crossed the auction block in 2017 for $750 in MS 64, thanks to its striking diagonal crack that fans often refer to as the lightning bolt variety. Those cracks aren't merely cosmetic. They map the die's wear and can add collectible character, especially when they intersect design elements in eye-catching ways. Mint mark anomalies also play a starring role for the 1972 issue. Denver pieces bear a small D punched below Kennedy's bust truncation, and over the years, specialized collectors have documented at least 2 repunched mint mark varieties. One FS 103 type shows a backward slanted D that overlaps a faint original D punch, visible under low magnification. An MS 65 example of this variety fetched $450 in a 2019 specialist sale, highlighting how minute minting quirks can translate directly into premiums. Equally fascinating is the rare instance of a filled or weakly punched Philadelphia P, an anomaly so scarce that only a handful of collectors own certified examples. Proof-like and deep cameo specimens from San Francisco's special mint sets deserve their own spotlight. Although these coins are not proofs in the classic sense, they possess satiny fields and frosted devices that rival some true proofs in reflectivity. A PL 63 can bring $35 to $50, but when you find a DCM 67 deep cameo piece, you're looking at values climbing toward $300. Auction records show a DCM 68 example selling in late 2023 for $475, underscoring that exceptional contrast can transform even a common date into a standout collectible. Stories of discovery add an emotional dimension to these mechanical oddities. In 2008, a Nebraska schoolteacher unearthed a 1972 double die obverse while sorting through a mint set she'd inherited. Initially convinced it was just a printing smudge, she spent weeks seeking verification from local club experts before realizing its true significance. By the time it hit the major auction circuits in 2010, the tale of a casual educator stumbling on a numismatic grail fueled competitive bidding that drove the final price to nearly $3,500. Beyond these headline varieties, everyday condition plays its part in driving value. In grades good, G4, and very good, VG10, circulated business strikes trade at roughly 75 cents to $1.50, just a small step above face value. As details sharpen through fine, F12, and very fine, VF20, you'll see prices move into the $2 to $4 range. It's when you hit extremely fine, XF40, that the coin's eye appeal truly emerges, commanding $5 to $8 at dealer tables. Coin-operated vending machines disgorging those nicer XF40 pieces. Sliding into the early 80s, the 1983 Kennedy half-dollar looks, to most folks, like just another clad coin. And in a way, it is. But that apparent ordinariness is exactly what makes its hidden quirks so rewarding to unearth. By 1983, circulation strikes were rare beasts. Mint sets were the primary source, and the machinery had settled into its copper-nickel rhythm. Yet, even with fewer silver leftovers and less public excitement, this date delivers a handful of error varieties, surprising market dynamics, and collector stories that can turn a 50-cent piece into a mini jackpot. Production figures set the stage. The Philadelphia Mint struck roughly 38 million 1983 p-halves for circulation, while Denver produced about 32 million. But those numbers are misleading. Most coins never saw pockets or registers. Banks didn't order them, vending machine operators dropped support, and the Mint shifted emphasis to collector sales. In 1983, nearly 4 million Mint sets were sold, each containing a pristine, uncirculated half. That means maybe 1 to 2 million coins actually reached circulation, and far fewer survived in high grade. That scarcity among regular strikes makes any brilliant, full red original. Excuse me, full cartwheel luster, 1983 half worth examining. A raw MS-63, common though it is in theory, often sells for $10 to $15. Move up to MS-65, and you're in the $50 to $75 range. An MS-66 with razor-sharp detail and flash mirror fields can hit $150 to $200. For a coin many collectors dismiss, those premiums are remarkable. But let's talk rarities. One of the standout error types is the clipped planchet. On roughly 1 in every 100,000 coins, the blank metal disc fed into the press was cut imperfectly, leaving a curved, unstruck slice missing from the rim. Most clipped planchets show a small crescent. On the 1983 half, some dramatic clips remove a 1/4 inch or more. Collectors prize clear, smooth-edged clips that don't impinge on major design elements. A lightly clipped MS-60 coin might bring $100 to $150. A bold MS-65 example can fetch $400 to $600 at auction. Another subtle variety is the broad strike error. Occasionally, a half will be struck without its retaining collar, allowing the metal to flow outward and produce a slightly larger diameter, soft-rimmed coin with a blurred periphery. Broad strikes with full detail and original luster command $75 to $125 in lower grades, and $200 to $300 in mint state grades. On 1983 halves, broad strikes often show faint doubling of the date and lettering where the metal spread, a telltale sign under 5 times magnification. A third category, easily missed, is the off-center strike. When the planchet shifts before the strike, part of the design is missing. Minor off-centers, 5 to 10% of the design, trade for $50 to $100, but dramatic 20 to 30% off-centers can top $500, especially in higher grades. One collector I spoke with found a 1983 D half in a dealer's junk box that was off-center nearly 25%. He later sold it for $725. He said the thrill was in spotting the blank crescent where Kennedy's profile should have been. Weight anomalies also appear, though less dramatically than in the silver era. A handful of 1983 halves were struck on slightly underweight planchets, 11.20 to 11.25 grams instead of the standard 11.34 grams, due to planchet preparation glitches. Those lightweight errors, when verified, command $150 to $250 in AU grades and $300 to $500 in MS-60, MS-63. They're silent finds. You weigh dozens of halves, one rings a hair lower on the scale, and suddenly you've got an auction lot. Varieties linked to die wear and polishing deserve mention. Some 1983 p-halves exhibit die cracks radiating from the date through the field. Others show faint, die polish lines near Kennedy's hair and the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Neither variety is dramatic, but advanced collectors love them. A coin with a prominent die crack that doesn't break the rim can increase value by 25 to 50% over a standard MS-64. One NGC-graded MS-65 1983P with a spiderweb crack through In God We Trust sold for $225, nearly triple the price of a clean MS-65. Then there's the curious case of the 1983 D over horizontal D mint mark variety. On some Denver dies, a secondary punch was applied over an earlier, improperly aligned D, leaving a faint horizontal serif beneath the main mint mark. It's subtle, often invisible without angled light and 10 times magnification, but it's cataloged as D03 in specialist guides. Value for a clear D over horizontal D in MS-65 hovers around $300. In circulated grades, $30 to $50. Auction records reflect growing enthusiasm. In 2023, Heritage offered a PCGS MS-66 1983P Broadstrike that realized $320. That same year, a PCGS MS-66 clip planchet half sold for $560. An NGC MS-67 with original cartwheel luster and no visible errors closed at $240, underscoring how demand for top-grade survivors can rival error coin prices. Collectors, 1983 halves represent the last classic, modern coin before things got too digital, too mass-produced, too automated. In practical terms, if you find a handful of 1,983 halves in circulation, hang on to any that exhibits strong cartwheel luster and full rims. Even without dramatic error, an MS-65 Plus raw half will likely appreciate as high-grade survivors become ever scarcer. And if you spot a clipped planchet, broad strike, off-center, die crack, or mint-mark oddity, jump on it. These errors may not match the five-figure silver rarities of 1971, but they routinely deliver hundreds of dollars for minimal investment. So next time you sift through a roll of half dollars, don't overlook the 1983. It may look like everyday change, but beneath its plain surface lies a world of minting mischief and hidden value. From clipped planchets to over-punched mint marks, this humble coin rewards those with patience, a sharp eye, and a willingness to weigh, measure, and magnify. And with that, our journey through 3 transformative years of Kennedy has come to a close. Whether you inherited these coins